My grandfather's will was not read out in a law firm. It took place on the main stage of the family reunion, under the glittering light of the chandelier he had imported from Italy. He believed that an inheritance was not a private matter but a spectacle, and I was the designated stage worker. The estate was a museum of punk. Marble floors that reflected the afternoon sun. Walls decorated with oil paintings of ancestors with strict facial expressions and windows framing perfectly manicured gardens. Each member of the family was forced into a suit or evening dress and stood stiffly, as if the fabric itself were rather frightening. The employees stood silently in the background, their noses lowered, while the air carried the actual scent of old money, mixed with freshly cut gardenias. No one was grieving. We were all actors in a ritual of greed and anticipation. The lawyer cleared his throat and began the reading. Most of the estate, the sprawling enterprise, the entire inheritance went to my cousin Julian. Julian has the ambition and talent to carry on the family name, the lawyer said in a low voice. Every word is like a hammer blow. Then my phrase came, worded with deliberate cruelty. I bequeath $1 to my grandson. Some children are born to build an empire. Others are born to live in his shadow. He has occupied enough space in this family for a long time. A collective, sharp sigh of relief went through the room, not with sorrow, but horror at the brutality. Julian's grin was hard to hide. My parents avoided my gaze. Her shame was stronger than my humiliation. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went to form, took the single dollar from the mahogany table, and looked at Julian. Do not worry. I will not deprive you of attention any longer, I said, turning to the room, or you at all. With my fists clenched around the dollar, I went out and felt the looks like physical blows. While strolling through the streets, I barely noticed the cold. The city lights blurred into golden and gray streaks as I walked. The lonely dollar weighed heavily in my pocket, as if it had absorbed every humiliation I had endured. But the pain of embarrassment was secondary to a more insidious clarity that was cold and precise about me. Every memory, every little insult, every lesson that my family thought to teach me was now coming together. I remembered that Christmas when I was 10. Julian tore open the cardboard with a high-end gaming PC, his eyes widened with joy. I unpacked a lexicon. My grandfather had smiled at me benevolently. So that your head is filled with something useful, he said. Julian needs the tools for his future. I had laughed along, swallowing down the bitter aftertaste of inadequacy that seemed to drip from every word. I remembered how I had started a small lawnmower business at the age of 16 and made more money than ever before. My father had shrugged his shoulders and patted me on the shoulder with a dismissive smile. It's a nice distraction, Liam, but focus on your grades. You're going to need a good job at some point. When Julian drove a company car to scrap during his internship in the family business, it had been different. He's learning the business, shows initiative. The rules had never been the same for both of us. It hit me like a gust of cold wind. It was never about my abilities. It was about my refusal to adapt, to my unwillingness to accept their empty symbols of success. I wasn't reckless enough. I did not long for their recognition. I refused to play the role they intended for me. The place I had taken in her eyes was nothing more than the place reserved for someone who adhered to the script. I had failed their test, not my own. Sitting on a park bench, I stared at the dollar bill in my hand, and suddenly, its meaning changed. He was no longer an insult. He was a seed coming. The only thing they had ever given me that really belonged to me, untainted by expectations or judgments. I clutched him tighter and let his weight turn into something new. Determination. I would make $1 more out of this one than your entire RBJ was worth, and I would do it according to my own ideas, without shadows, without conditions. Just a single defiant spark that lit up the path to the future. I didn't go home. Not yet. I fell asleep on the couch with a friend. The buzz of the city outside was a more soothing lullaby than the silence on my family's estate. My parents called once and left a stiff voil. Liam, this is embarrassing for everyone. Come home. We will discuss how you can apologize to Julian and find a place in the company. I deleted the message. The words felt like chains I didn't want to wear. The first hurdle hit me quickly. Without recommendations from my family, doors that should have been open were closed to me. Finally, I found work in a dilapidated car repair shop on the outskirts of the city, a world away from marble floors and crystallizers. My hands, once soft and inexperienced, were now greasy, scratched by metal edges and hardened by honest work. The work was invisible to everyone but me, and that was perfect. I opened a new bank account and never called it Latin for nothing. I paid this $1. Of each paycheck, I put a part on it, a ritual that became almost sacred. Every dollar I earned was mine, not the family history, not the shadows they had cast on my life. Frank, the owner of the workshop, was an old, silent man who seemed to walk around the garage like a ghost. On a lunch break, I sketched car designs on a crumpled napkin. He grunted and nodded to the drawings. "You draw better than you grind," he said, and from then on he put old car magazines and engineering textbooks on the workbench for me. Small guests, but they felt like permission to develop me further. One evening, while working on a classic car, I noticed a glaring gap in the market, a hard-to-find catalyst for a classic car model. With the Nielsen, I bought a broken one from the junkyard. In Frank's garage, I disassembled it after work, reassembled it, and even improved the construction. The satisfaction of having created something was exhilarating. The first sale was a silent triumph, 10 times my purchase price. I invested every penny back into Neil. Then another and another. It wasn't a business, at least not yet. It was a secret rebellion, a silent resistance that took place under the hood of a car, up off the golden halls of my family's world. Every dollar, every repaired part took me one step further away from their expectations and closer to the empire that I was building for myself, step by step, silently and thoughtfully. Rumors were making the rounds long before anyone had the courage to utter them. Julian's old-fashioned arrogance caused the family business to falter. Important customers were verboten, stock prices crashed, and the polished facade of competence, which my grandfather had been working on for decades, cracked. The empire they had built on inherited power showed the first signs of decay, and suddenly the untouchable Jujan seemed far from invincible. One afternoon my mother appeared in the garage. Her designer coat seemed completely out of place between the grease and the steel. "Liam, this has been going on for long enough now," she said in a voice that oscillated between frustration and despair. "Your family needs you. Julian needs help." It was the first time in my life that I heard them admit that they needed something. I wiped my hands on a rag, did not look up, and said, "I'm busy," before I turned to welding again. Later, Frank took me aside. "Boy, you really have a talent for this," he said, nodding in the direction of one of my constructions. "This construction of yours?" "Ingenious." He pushed a business card across the table for me, that of an investor from the automotive supply industry. "I asked for a favor. He wants to get to know you." I went to the meeting without a suit in my cleanest work clothes and had nothing with me except my prototypes and construction drawings. I didn't need a PowerPoint presentation or elaborate diagrams. I had the proof of concept. I showed him my work, the parts I had revised, and the sales figures of my secret online company. Impressed, he leaned back and offered me not only financing, but a partnership. The company's rating exceeded my artificial dreams. She even surpassed the inheritance that was being withheld from me. Weeks later, I was sitting in an elegant office in the city center, signing the documents that made everything official. I used a pen from the kiosk. When I pressed my names under the contract, my fingers brushed the single dollar in my wallet, worn and crumpled. He had been my starting point, the one of everything I had built up. "Boy, you really have a talent for this," he said, nodding in the direction of one of my constructions. "This construction of yours?" "Ingenious." He pushed a business card across the table for me, that of an investor from the automotive supply industry. "I asked for a favor. He wants to get to know you." I went to the meeting without a suit in my cleanest work clothes and had nothing with me except my prototypes and construction drawings. I didn't need a PowerPoint presentation or elaborate diagrams. I had the proof of concept. I showed him my work, the parts I had revised, and the sales figures of my secret online company. Impressed, he leaned back and offered me not only financing, but a partnership. The company's rating exceeded my artificial dreams. She even surpassed the inheritance that was being withheld from me. Weeks later, I was sitting in an elegant office in the city center, signing the documents that made everything official. I used a pen from the kiosk. When I pressed my names under the contract, my fingers brushed the single dollar in my wallet, worn and crumpled. He had been my starting point, the one of everything I had built up. From this lonely, devalued coin, I had created a true empire, one that belonged to me in every way. No expectations, no shadows, no legacy to lean on. For the first time, I understood the truth of my grandfather's most cruel words. Some are born to take up space, others to create something that will outlast them. I had taken the nothing that they offered me and made everything out of it, and I had done it according to my own ideas. The letter arrived in an impeccable envelope, the lawyer's seal embossed in gold. Not my parents, not Julian, just the cold, formal language of the family lawyers. "You will be asked to attend a family meeting to discuss the future," it said. The words were polite, but the subtext was clear. They needed me. I returned to the estate for the first time in 2 years. The splendor was unchanged. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, walls full of serious portraits. But the air was heavy, stuffy with despair. My parents looked older, their faces drawn by worry lines, and Julian sat slumped down, the arrogance of defeat giving way. My father cleared his throat. His usual authority was blown away. Liam started hesitantly. "Your company is on everyone's lips. We were wrong about you. The family urgently needs a loan with the company as collateral. They wanted me to save the empire that had ignored and undermined me for decades, that I invested my hard-earned success in the rubble of a legacy that had cast me off." I looked at them one by one calmly and thoughtfully. "You once gave me a single dollar and said I was just taking away space," I said. "That dollar was the most honest thing you ever gave me. He was the cornerstone of everything I have today. You can't expect something to reap what you've thrown away." Julian's face twisted into a handsome grin. "So you just want to let everything fall apart? Out of malice?" I slowly shook my head. "No, not out of malice, out of integrity. You built a castle on sand. I'm building a foundation on steel. I will not pledge my future to save your past." I turned to the door. "That dollar did what all your fortune couldn't. He taught me my own worth, and I should probably finally say thank you for that." Each step to the exit felt lighter than the previous one. I did not leave the house as a disinherited heir, but as a self-made man who carried with him nothing but the lessons he had learned and the empire that he had built up quietly and quietly. The door closed behind me. A distinct click stops again in the great hall. This time the castle did not feel like a captivity for me. It felt like a boundary, a line between the world I had built and the ruins of hers. The chandelier above me flickered in the afternoon light, but I didn't look up. My gaze was focused on form, on a horizon that I had worked out for myself, a legacy that I had created out of nothing. And for the first time in my life, I went completely unscathed. My company Nihil Automotive is flourishing. We specialize in sustainable conversions for classic cars. We honor the past, but build for the future. I am aware of the irony. The empire I inherited was not their property. I had to create it myself. Looking back, I realized that the real legacy was not the single dollar itself, but the lesson it held in itself. He taught me that value is not inherited, but is built up stone by stone, idea by idea through effort and integrity. The most valuable place to occupy is not inherited. He is the one you create for yourself. So if you have ever been judged and found to be inadequate, if nothing has ever been given to you and you have been told that this is all you deserve, then consider this nothing. Hold it in your hand. This nothingness is a blank canvas. It is the only thing that no one else can determine about. And then ask yourself, what will you create with it? Where are you listening from? And most